All right, I'm joined by Jon Scholes, President and CEO of the Downtown Seattle Association. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Omari?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. DSA's been making some noise lately, and really, actually, downtown as a whole has kind of been making some noise, kind of trying to let the city, as far as city government and the people in the city of Seattle, know some of the challenges and perhaps opportunities that are downtown. Maybe you can bring us up to speed as to what's been happening lately.
Sure. I mean, it starts from the premise that every great city, in my mind, has a great downtown, a great urban core and center that really is everybody's neighborhood and that is key to the economic health of the whole city and in many ways the whole region, key to the brand and identity of that city and region. And it's the place that we all gather to work and celebrate, come together as a community. And our downtown has obviously been hit hard through the pandemic. We were the first downtown, the first urban core in the country to really feel the economic effects when we discovered there were coronavirus cases in late February, early March. Tens of thousands of folks started working from home on March 5th, and the streets and sidewalks and bars and restaurants and shops went pretty quiet. And it's been devastating for lots of workers, lots of small businesses, arts and culture. And that spreads beyond the downtown. We have 350,000 jobs in the downtown and about 90,000 people who work there. So most of those folks who work downtown live in other communities around Seattle and around King County and around the region. And so when they're, as individuals, harmed economically, there's harm that is spread to other communities. And those arts and cultural organizations and civic institutions like the market those are drawing people from around the region, not just serving downtown residents or those who live within Seattle. So the impacts to downtown are felt beyond, the 3 square miles of the neighborhoods that make up downtown Seattle and really felt across our city and region. And this has been true for downtowns across the country and across the world throughout this pandemic, that, we're all about bringing people together. Pandemic means we all have to stay far apart. And that equation doesn't work well for the way downtowns were built. But I'm optimistic about our path forward and the desire for people to come back to our downtown and enjoy what downtowns and urban cores only can deliver.
Right, and when you're talking about being excited about the opportunities and the way forward to bring people downtown, Seattle is a city that's been, on the cutting edge of innovation and all kinds of things for years and years. What kind of innovative things might be in the forecast to be able to get people downtown, considering you're facing this pandemic and some of the other challenges going on in our city?
Yeah, I think there has to be a balance between, what is reopened and sort of returned to how it was back in February, and then what gets reinvented and reimagined. And that's been one of the strengths of cities and downtowns really since the beginning of cities. They always adapt and they change. They're not static places. And I think there's an opportunity here to think about what can be reinvented and reimagined. I don't think it's good enough to say, hey, we're back, just how it was in February, come back down. I think people want to see new things, new experiences, the way we use our public space to be reimagined, and the ground floor of downtown, which has been impacted deeply. Lots of vacancies, lots of businesses that have closed permanently and that aren't going to be able to reopen and come back. So what comes in their place, and how do we ensure that there's folks and entrepreneurs from throughout our community that have access to coming down with their idea, their innovation, and opening up shop, and to celebrate those things that are new and the spaces that change, both the public space but also private spaces. So I think there's this balance between sort of reopening and then what gets reinvented and what changes. How do we use things differently? How do we bring new ideas and new folks into downtown that didn't have those opportunities before? I think across the country and certainly in Seattle, the success that downtown's had over the last 20 years, lots of good things came from that. And there was a desire for many, whether it was investors or workers or residents, to want to be and live and experience the downtown. But it meant that lots of other folks weren't. And if you were making 6 figures as a software engineer and you could afford $5,000 a month rent and a $22 cocktail, like downtown life was great for you. but it pushed a lot of other folks out. And I think long term, that's detrimental to what downtowns have to be dynamic and durable and interesting for the long haul. They've got to be places where there's lots of variety, lots of opportunity, places for folks of all means to mix. Those places have to be desirable to folks from throughout our region. And so I think that's our sort of challenge and opportunity as we've been battered economically by this pandemic to rebuild with that in mind, because that's how our downtowns got created in this country, at least by people from around the world that showed up of different means, different backgrounds, speaking different languages that created so much of what we have today. You can look around Seattle and still see the things that we value and use today were created by people that came from all walks of life. And you can see that in Chicago and New York and San Francisco. So to the extent that downtowns are just full of a similar group of folks, economically and otherwise, I think that is harmful to sort of the long-term success and durability and desirability of our urban places. Well, I lost your audio, Omari.
Sorry, the interesting side note for our viewers is that, you know, the very first black settlers here in Seattle area, one in particular, William Gross, over 140 years ago, I mean, he was in business downtown, had a hotel downtown, restaurant downtown, maybe a brothel downtown. But, you know, the very, very first black people who came out here to Seattle were entrepreneurs and industrious people and set up shop in the downtown corridor.
Yeah, and our most diverse neighborhoods in Seattle have always been the ones closest to downtown. I mean, the diversity has certainly changed over the last 50 years and the reduction of the black population in Seattle over that time. But, you know, Yesler and Jackson and First Hill and, of course, the CD, these have been, you know, the more diverse neighborhoods in Seattle, the ones more closely connected to downtown. So there's a lot of important history to how the downtown was developed and contributions from the black community, like you noted.
Right. And now when you talk about this reimagination that needs to occur, not only here in Seattle, but downtowns across the country and around the world, what exactly or how exactly is the DSA involved or trying to be involved in this reimagining of downtown Seattle?
Well, we want to be asking the community what that means to them. I think there's a lot of listening to be done as we get closer to a vaccine. We see a bit of a bright spot on the horizon of, you know, hopefully these restrictions that we have in place now begin to be relaxed as we beat down this third wave of virus. And then we got to do a lot of listening. And where there's economic harm and hardship, there's, you know, new opportunity for others. And we have a lot of economic harm and hardship with businesses that have had to close and properties that are vacant. And so how can we get creative in, inviting entrepreneurs in, thinking of different models for how the ground floor and retail spaces are managed and priced? Are there some, collectives that are formed to help entrepreneurs make it really easy to get into the market? My ideal world would be downtown's the easiest place to open a new business. If you've got an idea on the other side of this pandemic and you're looking to, access capital and open a business and get a lease and get help and support, how can we make downtown Seattle the easiest place to do that? And just make it much easier than it was before to be able to come with your idea and open up your doors. So I think those are some of the questions we're asking and listening to the community. And I think we have to, develop some new models and new collectives of, partnering accountants and lawyers and others that maybe can lend some of their time and energy and resource to helping the small business community get back on their feet and helping folks who weren't small business owners before this, but have an interest in an idea now, get in the market and open up their doors.
Right. And now you talk about, we know about the challenges of downtown, and even right now, some businesses are struggling to hang on. Hopefully they'll be able to hang on through the new year. But the point is that there are still businesses that are open downtown. A lot of times people think that it's just a ghost town. I live and work downtown, and so I see these businesses open. I try to support it as many as possible. But there's also the messaging around the pandemic is very much one, stay home, but two, stay local, support your local everything. How does that mesh up with downtown, who's clearly in need of business? Maybe you could talk a little bit more about businesses that are open or spaces that are open that people can come down and be supportive of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stay local message still works for downtown because there's folks who live downtown. We've got you do, I do, 84,000 other folks live in the greater downtown, and they're still there. And so there's restaurants and the market, and before these recent restrictions, the art museum and other arts and cultural venues that were able to open their doors. There's plenty of patios, great retail that is got reduced capacity, but they're still allowed to operate. So all of that message works for downtown, but downtowns also rely on lots of other people coming into the neighborhood, whether you are a worker or a convention goer, or you're coming from Iowa for the weekend with your spouse, or you're coming in from Issaquah with your family. And when that's working, it works great because each of those users and those populations help support the richness of the downtown. But when you can't have cruise ships and conventions, and folks are working from home, and there's no business meetings and not a lot of leisure travel, there's not enough of the rest of us to fully support all those great small businesses. And it's why we've seen more than 150 close permanently, not just temporarily, but they've said they're closed permanently. And with that, the folks who work for them that are bringing paychecks home to neighborhoods throughout our city and region, as you've pointed out. So that's been a significant impact. And so we want to get to a point where we can safely invite all those other folks back that we think do want that urban downtown experience. Certainly, I think folks will work more from home at some level after we're through this, but I think the office survives. I think folks want to get back to enjoying arts and culture and sports with their friends, going to happy hour before a game or after, doing all those things that we do together with each other in cities. But it's going to be I think a difficult climb ahead.
Right. I think that one thing for sure, an advantage that downtown Seattle has, and maybe downtowns as a whole, is a lot of the memories that people have of downtown, some of them are very much tied to a business. I remember the Bon Marché, I remember Frederick and Nelson, but a lot of it was just the experience of how you felt. There's very few places when you go to cities across the country that you're always going to have a feeling about downtown. Downtown Seattle usually is a good feeling, but it's just like when you go downtown and you go to Times Square, you could circle around 360 degrees, might not be able to remember the stores that you saw looking around, but you remember that feeling of being there. And I think that there's so many people who have that great feeling of great experiences there at being downtown. People remember sitting there at the Seafair Parade, and people remember watching the sunset down there on the waterfront. So I think that when this normal, whatever it is, returns, me personally, I don't think that in a general sense it's going to be hard for people to come downtown, and it might not be for this specific store or restaurant. It's going to be to recapture that feeling and recapture those traditions and rituals that make downtown a real special place.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's nothing like kind of the big city experience. I grew up in Tacoma, and my parents didn't work downtown. My connection to downtown was just coming up on the weekends. And I remember, you pull over the South Center Hill and the skyline appears, and that sort of feeling of, excitement, and then pulling off on the Seneca exit, and particularly at night during the holidays, and 6th and 5th Avenue is all lit up. And, those are my memories of, going to the big city, and there's an energy about it, and it is this place where we all come together. There aren't other neighborhoods where so many different people from all walks of life and around the city and region and world sort of mix, and there's something exciting about that. It's where big decisions are made by our governments. It's where lots of things are created, arts and culture certainly, but other big ideas. So I think our cities will certainly get through this and persevere. And pandemics have always impacted cities, and they've always come through stronger on the other side. And I think people are hungry for what you just described, of that excitement of the city.
Right. And the last question for you is that you just talked about downtown as a place where different people and different cultures come together. Seattle is a city of shifting demographics, and Seattle proper, of course, around King County and even further out, but especially around King County. Excuse me. Different demographics are in the city, different cultures, different races, and some of everything else. How important is it to the Downtown Seattle Association in this reimagination that, one, they're intentional and inclusive in their communications to different ethnic groups, two different people from different backgrounds. One, about, yeah, hey, come to downtown. But two, when we talk about coming through a pandemic and building on the other side, how important is it that in creating the new traditions and rituals that are going to move forward, the different cultures are involved?
Absolutely critical. I mean, as I noted earlier, I think the more successful, interesting, desirable downtowns are the ones where there's a great mix of people, ideas, types of businesses, different types of arts and culture and experiences. You want this dynamic mix. We don't want to be the same or offer a limited number of options. We want lots of variety of folks who are downtown. I think that's what people want. That's why they come to a downtown, for an experience they can't get anywhere else, and to be around people that maybe they're not around as in their day-to-day life, in the place they work or the neighborhood they live, where maybe folks look a lot like them and have similar backgrounds as they do. I mean, in many ways, our city and region are still fairly segregated in those experiences of the types of folks we're around in a workplace and in our neighborhood. And so a downtown has a great opportunity to sort of bring down all those barriers and create this great mix, to remind us that we share this community together, we share this great city. And the downtowns that do that well, I think, are the ones that are going to be most desirable and interesting. And we want downtown Seattle to be that place. And I think in a lot of ways it has. I work the ticket booth at the holiday carousel that we've been doing for 40 plus years. We're not doing it this year in Westlake Park for obvious reasons. But when you work that ticket booth on the Friday after Thanksgiving and you're handing tickets to folks, the variety of folks and the mix of folks that you are seeing there is more diverse than I would say any other part of the city at that moment in time. And that's what I think is great about the centers of our cities. That's what they need to always be striving for, to be welcoming and open, make sure everybody feels like they belong, but also that there's an opportunity for folks to partake, to open a business, to work for one of the great employers, that people feel like they belong there and that they see opportunity. The downtowns that are able to deliver that are the ones that are going to be successful, in my mind, in the 21st century.
Right. And before we let you go, you're president and CEO, Downtown Seattle Association. What do you want our viewers to know about your organization, or if there's anything that I've missed in this interview?
Well, if you want to learn more, go to downtownseattle.org. You can follow us across social media. We want your ideas. And so you can reach me at jons@downtownseattle.org. We came about as an organization in the late 1950s when downtown faced sort of similar threats, when people were fleeing for the suburbs. And we're a group of people that have a deep care and concern for our downtown and want to roll up our sleeves and do something about it, make it a better place, but also make sure the tent is really big and the sides are open and that everybody can bring their idea and input. And Omari, I appreciate the time that you've been spending with us and some of our programming and some of the sessions that we've organized and the important perspective that you've brought. I've been taking notes. I know our communication folks have been taking notes because I think we can do better in how we communicate with folks around our city and region to really deliver on the idea that, yeah, downtown's a neighborhood for everybody.